Welcome to the Innovation Series, where I take you on a journey to build complex technology from scratch, step by step, from idea to reality. The main topic of this video is primary concept. We will discuss what primary concept is, and I will demonstrate to you how to create a primary concept. Let's start with the definition of primary concept. Primary concept is defined as a generic description of a device in terms of its function and operation. See how I emphasize function and operation. Why function and operation? It is because function and operation are the two important defining properties of the device. Without those, the device is practically non-existent. There is no use in building complex technology which does not have any function nor can be operated. It's important to note that the description of function and operation always conveys information regarding its interaction. If we say this is the device function, then the next question is what object is it functioned upon? If we say operation, then the next question is whom the device is operated by. Therefore, by describing the function and operation, it is not just showing how the device practically exists in the real world, but also how the device interacts with external entities. Let's remember at the beginning, I said in this course we will create a real, tangible product from conception through production. This primary concept is the first concept that is created before anything else. This is the top single important description, where any other description is derived from the primary concept. Since the primary concept is the first device's description, it acts as a guide of how the other specific descriptions shall be made. Important to note is that creating the primary concept is not a trivial matter. The innovator shall be able to project their mind accurately. Their wording shall balance between generic versus specific description. That is a skill that can be obtained from real-world experience only. Now that we've covered the theory, let's move on to a practical example of a primary concept. As mentioned earlier, we'll use the catapult to demonstrate how to build complex technology. First, I will introduce the final primary concept of the catapult that I have created. Then, I will demonstrate step by step how I developed this concept. The primary concept of a catapult is, it is a device that has a function to throw a projectile. It can store mechanical energy from the user. When the energy is released, then the energy will be transferred to the projectile so that the projectile possesses kinetic energy. That is the primary concept of the catapult. These three sentences describe what a catapult is in terms of function and operation. Additionally, if you observe closely, the primary concept of the catapult not only describes its function and operation, but also clearly identifies its interactions. In this case, the catapult interacts with the user and the projectile. Now you have seen the example of the primary concept of the catapult. Do you think it is easy to create a primary concept? Creating the primary concept may look easy, but it actually involves a lot of thought processes. I will demonstrate here the thought process to formulate the primary concept. First and foremost, we have to trigger our mind by iteratively answering these questions. The first question is, what is the function of the device? This question will trigger us to contemplate about the functionality of the device. The second question is, how do you operate the device? This question will trigger us to contemplate about the operation or interaction of the device. After we obtain the initial answer to the question, the process is not complete. We need to evaluate whether the answer is too generic or too specific. If it's too generic, add more detail. If it's too specific, generalize it to accommodate broader solutions. Continue refining until a balanced answer is achieved, neither too generic nor too specific. After that, keep iterating the question-answer process to develop multiple balanced answers in terms of function and operation. Finally, assemble all the answers into a cohesive flow of sentences within a single paragraph. Now that I have described the formula, we can apply it to create the primary concept of the catapult. Let's follow the process one by one. Let's begin by addressing the question, what is the function of the device? Using a catapult as an example, we can imagine its function is to throw a projectile. Thus, we can simply state it is a device that has the function to throw a projectile. The next question is, how do you operate the device? Initially, we can think the user needs to push the catapult to prepare it for throwing. However, let's focus on the term push. Using the word push makes the description quite specific, excluding the possibility of operating the catapult by pulling a rope instead. To avoid this limitation, we can use a more generic statement like, it can store mechanical energy from the user. This broader description accommodates both pulling and pushing actions, as long as the user provides the mechanical energy to operate the catapult. Let's continue by iterating the process and asking, what else is the function of the device? After the user stores the mechanical energy, we want the device to release the energy to throw the projectile. So we might write, the device transfers the stored energy to the projectile. However, upon reflection, this feels too generic. We want the projectile to be thrown, which means it must possess kinetic energy. By specifying this, we ensure that the stored energy is converted into the projectile's movement, making it consistent with our intention. So we write, the device transfers the stored energy so that the projectile possesses kinetic energy. Let's do another iteration. We iterate again by asking what else is the operation of the device. We can imagine that after the user stores the energy, the user has the option when to release the energy. So we can write, the user can release the stored energy. We can continue iterating until we achieve a balanced primary concept that combines generic and specific terms effectively. For now, let's pause and focus on assembling all our answers into a cohesive flow within a single paragraph. After iteratively answering the questions, we collected 4 answers. First answer is, it is a device that has the function to throw a projectile. Second answer is, it can store mechanical energy from the user. Third answer is, the device transfers the stored energy to the projectile. Fourth answer is, the user can release the stored energy. When we combine all the answers into one cohesive paragraph, it becomes, it is a device that has a function to throw a projectile. It can store mechanical energy from the user. When energy is released, then the energy will be transferred to the projectile so that the projectile possesses kinetic energy. Congratulations! You've successfully formulated the primary concept of the catapult. By following the step-by-step thought process, you've gained the foundational knowledge needed to begin innovating. As I mentioned earlier, the ability to formulate a primary concept is a skill that can be developed through practice. Why not give it a try by coming up with the primary concept for everyday devices? To help you learn, I have another example for you to analyze. Here's an example of an incomplete primary concept for an oven. It is a device to cook food. It is rectangular shaped with at least 30 centimeters in length. The fire will heat up the food until it is fully cooked. A user powers on the oven by connecting it to the electrical power source. Your task is to identify the mistakes in this concept and suggest improvements. Use the steps we discussed earlier to refine it. There's no single correct answer. This is purely an exercise to practice creating primary concepts. Once you feel satisfied with your work, you can move on to the next lesson.